toughest part was every day she'd wake up and realize someone had called today to tell her mother had passed away.
For more than 20 years, Jay Leno was the face of The Tonight Show. He made millions laugh on television, spent weekends performing stand-up across America, and filled his garage with hundreds of rare classic cars. To millions, he seemed to have the perfect life. But behind the success, the laughter, and the life everyone admired, another story was quietly unfolding. A story that would test Jay Leno in ways no audience could ever imagine. In this video, you'll see the side of Jay Leno few people know. Let's dive in. The humble beginnings. Born on April 28, 1950, Jay Leno grew up in a modest household in New Rochelle, New York. His father sold insurance, while his Scottish-born mother devoted herself to raising the family, teaching Jay the values of hard work and perseverance. Nothing about his childhood suggested he would one day become one of America's most beloved television hosts. When Jay was still young, his family moved to Andover, Massachusetts, where he spent the rest of his childhood. It was there that he faced one of his earliest and most difficult challenges. And it all started with school. He lived with dyslexia, and reading took him much longer than other students. Some teachers doubted his potential, seeing only a boy who struggled in the classroom. While school remained a constant challenge, Jay discovered one place where he truly belonged. Whenever he made people laugh, the doubts faded, and his confidence grew. For the first time, he realized he had a gift that no report card could measure. That feeling followed him into adulthood. At 18 years old, in 1968, Jay moved to Boston to attend Emerson College. He studied speech therapy, but comedy was never far from his mind. While most students focused only on classes, Jay started the college's first comedy club and spent his nights performing stand-up whenever he could. The audiences were often small. The money barely covered his expenses. Yet he kept returning to the stage because every performance made him a little better. Those late nights prepared him for something much bigger. After graduating in 1973, Jay decided it was time to chase his dream. He packed everything he had and set out in search of a bigger opportunity. Soon, he would arrive in a city filled with opportunity, a city that would change his entire life. Television changed everything. When Jay arrived in Los Angeles, he wasn't walking into success. He was walking into years of uncertainty. He performed in small comedy clubs. He wasn't famous. What he had was patience, relentless discipline, and a belief that one great performance could change everything. Years of persistence finally opened the door to television. Appearances on The Mike Douglas Show and The Merv Griffin Show introduced him to a national audience. Before long, his growing reputation caught the attention of Johnny Carson. Carson invited Jay to perform on The Tonight Show. Jay delivered a performance that earned Carson's respect, and in 1986, Carson named him one of the show's regular guest hosts. When Carson retired in 1992, Jay became host of The Tonight Show. For the next 17 years, he welcomed millions of viewers 5 nights a week, interviewing presidents, actors, musicians, athletes, and comedians. The show remained one of America's highest-rated late-night programs, making Jay one of television's most recognizable personalities. Despite his success, Jay never abandoned stand-up comedy. He continued performing live whenever he could, believing that nothing kept his timing sharper than a real audience. Away from the stage, his lifelong passion for automobiles grew into one of the world's greatest private collections, featuring more than 180 cars and over 160 motorcycles. Jay met Mavis Nicholson at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles during the 1970s, where she had come to watch a performance. They quickly connected through their shared sense of humor and grounded personalities. After several years together, Jay married Mavis Nicholson in 1980, when he was still fighting to establish himself as a comedian. Television success was still years away, and every opportunity had to be earned. Through those uncertain years, Mavis became his constant source of support as he continued chasing the career he had always dreamed of. It finally seemed like Jay had everything he had spent a lifetime working for. But life was about to test that happiness in ways no stage ever could. Tragedy kept coming. After 17 years behind the Tonight Show desk, Jay said goodbye to the role that had made him one of America's most recognizable television personalities. Although his time as host had ended, his journey was far from over. Rather than slowing down, Jay returned to what had always brought him the greatest joy. He traveled across the country performing stand-up comedy and launched Jay Leno's Garage to share his lifelong passion for remarkable automobiles. He also spent countless hours restoring and driving the rare cars and motorcycles he had collected over the years. After decades of success, he finally had the freedom to spend his time doing what he loved most, and life seemed to enter a deeply fulfilling new chapter. For the first time in decades, everything appeared to be exactly where it belonged. But in November 2022, everything changed. While working on one of the classic cars he had loved since childhood, a gasoline fire suddenly erupted. The flames badly burned his face and left him with serious injuries. Many people believed this would end his public life for months. But Jay had other plans. He underwent skin graft surgery, thanked the doctors who treated him, and returned to performing far sooner than anyone expected. The accident shocked the world. His determination impressed it even more. But that was only the beginning. Just weeks later, Jay crashed his motorcycle and suffered several broken bones. Most people would have stepped away from work. Jay kept performing whenever he could. Pain slowed him down, but it never convinced him to quit. Then, in November 2024, life tested him once again. Jay fell outside a hotel, suffering new facial injuries and a fractured wrist. Even after another painful recovery, he continued honoring his commitments. Time after time, he proved that setbacks would not decide how his story ended. The public saw the burns, the broken bones, the bandages. Those were the battles everyone could see. But behind the front door of his own home, a far more difficult battle had already begun. Mavis Leno, his wife of more than 4 decades, began showing signs of dementia. The changes started quietly. Then they slowly became impossible to ignore. Jay became her caregiver and rarely left her side. He later said that marriage means standing together, especially when life becomes difficult. It wasn't a promise he made only on his wedding day. It became the way he lived every single day. The burns eventually healed. The broken bones recovered. But the battle waiting at home offered no quick recovery. And for Jay, the hardest chapter of his life was only beginning. Love never leaves. Behind the headlines, Jay Leno faced a challenge far greater than burns, broken bones, or public recovery. Every day, he watched the woman he loved slowly lose pieces of the life they had built together. Dementia didn't arrive all at once. It came quietly, taking memories one by one. Every morning began with simple acts of care. Jay helped Mavis through routines that had once come naturally. Some conversations repeated again and again because she could no longer remember them. Familiar faces faded, shared memories slipped away. But Jay never stopped answering with the same patience, the same kindness, and the same love. For many people, this would have been the moment to step away from everything else. Jay made a different choice. He remained by Mavis's side while continuing to perform whenever he could. He once explained that marriage isn't about staying when life is easy. It's about staying when someone needs you the most. Those weren't just words, they became the way he lived every single day. Inside their home, fame no longer mattered. Television ratings, sold-out shows, awards, and one of the world's greatest car collections couldn't change what waited behind the front door. As more people learned about Mavis's condition, they began seeing Jay in a completely different light. Fans, fellow comedians, and close friends admired not only the entertainer who had made America laugh for decades, but also the husband who quietly honored every promise he had made. Now, at 76 years old, Jay Leno's greatest achievement isn't television, fame, or the hundreds of classic cars he collected. It's the quiet decision to choose loyalty over comfort, love over attention, and commitment over applause. Sometimes the greatest performance doesn't happen under bright lights. It happens at home when no one is watching. In the end, the greatest lesson from Jay Leno's story is that fame may earn admiration, but love, loyalty, and keeping your promises earn lasting respect. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to give it a thumbs up. Also, consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, because we'll be uploading more incredible stories like this one in the coming weeks. Until then, see ya!